Update. My name's Tim Newton and I'm here today to have a chat to you live for the next, well, we'll see how we go, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. We might even break an hour. We'll see how we go. The interesting thing today is we're in a post-Thailand Pass era here in Thailand, and that's going to be an interesting situation. So how is that going to change? And I'm sort of looking at this era from now until the end of the year. I'm calling it the sort of, well, the post-Thailand Pass era. So it's going to be interesting to see how that actually transpires and how Thailand is going to change. How is it going to manipulate what it can get from the world tourism market? How much of the tourism pie in the world can it get for people to come to Thailand? It's going to be a very interesting situation, not just here in Thailand, but just about everywhere else in the world. Now today, as usual on Saturday mornings, I'm here at Boat Lagoon. That's a boat. Sad to say, it's not my boat. We're also going to have a talk today about the changes to public transport in Bangkok. I mean, over the last 2 years, part of the world, or a lot of the world, sort of been asleep in lockdown or whatever. And it's going to be an interesting sort of situation to see how the rest of the world wakes up in this post-COVID period. But Bangkok has certainly been on the move, and there's been some big changes to public transport, and we're going to have a talk about that. Also, the conundrum with face masks. Now, you're probably sick of talking about face masks, and frankly, I am too. But there has been some really big changes with the face mask wearing. There's been changes in the laws, and there's been changes in behaviour, but perhaps not the changes you would imagine. And I'm going to have a bit of a delve into why I think some of those behaviours are still happening. So that's all in our mix today. What else do I have? I've also got a list of some of the top 10 companies that have lost the most on the share market. Of course, July the 1st, not only the end of the Thailand Pass, which is important to us here in Thailand, but it also signals the end of the first half of the year for the financial markets. And it's going to be very interesting to have a look at the companies that have lost the most. By the way, I checked on Bitcoin overnight. Oh my God, what a cluster that is. If you've got money in the crypto market, I'm sad to say that you bet on the wrong horse. But of course, a lot of the people will be saying, no, hang in there, buy the dip. Good luck with that. Anyway, let's go and have a chat inside. I've already had my breakfast. I had, what did I have? I had pancakes and fruit. Very, very healthy. Now, I asked for no sugar, so there was no sugar sprinkled on the top. There was no syrup. So it was just nice, fresh Thai fruit. Mangoes, pineapples, strawberries, all grown here in Thailand. And yeah, of course, the pancakes. I think they probably had a bit of sugar in them. Anyway, going inside now, and quite a few people enjoying their breakfast here this morning. Once again, I'm here at Dean and DeLuca. If you'd like to have a cake or two, we're going to go and find a nice. Say good morning. Would you like a cup of tea? Very nice. So we're making our way in, and we're going to sit down and have a little bit of a chin wag. See what you think about these topics as we go through them, and we'll get your impressions, your feelings, and I'll do my best to pass those on. Okay, some more guests behind me enjoying their breakfast. Let's just get this set up at the right height, and I hope you can hear me okay. Yes, that's the Dean and DeLuca couple. So good morning to everybody. I can see there's a whole lot of people here. I might just move things around so I can more directly talk to you. I hope the lighting's okay. And as long as I look good, that's all that's important, right? And Scott D, great to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us. Other members, we've got Hans Schellenberg. What else have we got here? There's my tracking. Somebody's changed the tracking on my Mac. They've turned it around. sure why they're doing that. But yes, you do the two-finger scroll. You don't care. Lee Shepherd, hello to you. And we've also got Franco7, thank you for joining us. John Aussie, Wig Alert, Mark Lynn, PG Santa, of course, great to have you with us as always. And has it started? Has what started? Where's the Thaiger poster boy at? Who's the poster boy? Of course, I'm not going to understand much of this. Now, I've sort of pretty much stepped away from the video side of the Thaiger over the recent weeks. Nettie and Jay taking over, doing a fantastic job. They've got a very big video which is landing today, all about their visit to Suratani, and I do wish them well for that. Taking the Thaiger off in a slightly different direction, and it's a very exciting time, and they've really stepped up and doing an amazing job. So I'm sort of just filling in on Saturday mornings, giving Jay at least one day off during his really busy schedule. So yeah, I'm pretty much just going to come and say hello to you once a week. I think I've got another video coming out tomorrow about changes in microchips and trains and what's the other thing? Trains and electric cars in China. So I've got a report on that. I also did a film review about the new film Elvis during the week. A video that nobody watched. Anyway, doing my best. Poco Loco, hello to you. Franco7, Larry Conley. Gee, a lot of people talking. Hope you're all enjoying your chat to each other. Mark, Robbo, Larry, I mentioned you. Damien, Jessa, hello to you. Okay, so let's get stuck into today's main topics. What is happening with my Mac? I'm having a bit of a problem here, everybody. Bit of an existential problem. No, that's not working. How can I make this happen? Hide chat. Oh, now I've lost the chat completely. Show chat. There it is. Whew. Okay, so let's go to our topics, and here they are here. Sorry, just fiddling around with the machine here. I can't even find my cursor now. Just having one of those days. All right, to the, where's my cursor? There it is. And there's that. Oh dear, just forget that last 20 seconds. Okay, here we go. So, I'm interested to know, understanding that there is going to be a profound change in the types of tourists coming to Thailand, and also where those tourists are coming from. I mean, that's easy to measure. There's a lot of data collected on that, and this is really going to colour the way that we're looking at tourism for the next, I say, 6 months. Now, what happens next year? I mean, we really don't know what's in the future, but I'm just looking at the way that tourism is shaping itself from now up to the end of the year, when we enter the new high season. Now, no matter what happens between now and the end of the year, high season will be busy, because traditionally it's a very busy time. So here we go. The people that are coming to Thailand at the moment are primarily tourists from India, Malaysians, Singaporeans, Australians, people from the UK. So they've reintroduced flights out of Australia, primarily Jetstar, and people also coming via, say, Singapore Airlines, via Singapore, or via KL, or via other sort of destinations. They're the most popular ones. So, you know, if the flights are coming, the tourists are coming, and it's a bit of a chicken or the egg thing. Does the airline wait until there's demand, or do they introduce the flights and the demand happens? It's sort of chicken and egg. But they're the places where most of the tourists are coming from at the moment. Indians, Malaysians. Now, a lot of those Malaysians are crossing over the border in southern Thailand, and they're coming for like weekend visits, just over the weekend, a couple of days. A lot of people, of course, are coming out of Malaysia just on day visits, and they're coming just to do their normal trade. That sort of border region, there's just a lot of trade going backwards and forwards on a daily basis. And since the border reopened, of course, those people are returning to their daily normal trade, and they're getting stamped in and stamped out, and that registers as a visit. So that's why both those weekend visits and those daily visits are really pumping up the number of Malaysians entering Thailand. A lot of them not really here for tourism. But of course, a lot of them are flying from KL to Bangkok and enjoying a couple of weeks here as well. So as far as the Indians are concerned, they're the big rising market, and they're sort of seen to be saving a lot of what is happening in the tourism industry. They're filling the gap for mass tourism, which the Chinese and the Russians used to fulfill in the past. So a lot of Indian tourists coming to Thailand at this time. And the TAT, the Tourism Authority of Thailand, and the Department of the Ministry of Tourism and Sport are focusing very heavily on actually trying to introduce more flights from the major major population centres in India to visit, primarily Bangkok and Phuket, or landing in Bangkok and Phuket. I don't think there's any direct flights from India into Utupao, which services Pattaya at the moment, but this is going to make a profound change. Every time there's a bit of a change in the mix, sort of before 2010, there weren't Chinese tourists coming here at all. Then by 2019, they were fulfilling up to 30% of the number of tourists coming into Thailand and spending a lot of money. In fact, on a per day basis, the Chinese were outspending every other tourist in the world. The thing is, they used to come for a shorter time. They used to only come for 2, 3, 4 days, rather than a lot of other visitors, especially the Europeans, who would come here for up to 2 weeks, including the Russians. But on a per day basis, the Chinese were spending more than any other tourists from around the world. So taking those Chinese out of the mix at the moment is making a big change to things. So this is a really interesting dynamic. So now we've got the TAT chasing the Indian market. So the question is, does the TAT change the way that we do tourism in Thailand to cater for that market? Or do they just make Thailand as good as it possibly can be and letting its charms sell itself so that people come because they like the charm and the exotic nature of Thailand? And that's quite an interesting thing. I think in many ways a lot of the tourism operators try and just change the way that they do things to focus on that particular market. If you're got boat tours, you go to particular beaches or destinations that those people enjoy going to. So it's not so much the government or the TAT who are changing the way that Thailand approaches the tourism. It's perhaps more the operators and the way that the hotels operate their pricing and the way that they sell their rooms and who they sell their rooms to. So this is all quite interesting. And over the next 6 months, we're going to see quite a big change to the way that Thailand sells itself and who it sells itself to. Now, the TAT has spent a lot of money over the past decade, like a lot of money. And they operate by going overseas to a lot of these big travel marts, these expos, and telling all the travel operators over in those markets and the travel agents to come to Thailand. And they've basically been selling the bars, the beaches and the temples, and that's been the sort of amazing Thailand brand for the last 20 years. So is that going to be the way they're going to operate in the future? I've come up with a really crazy idea. Where did I come up with it? Oh, I did my sums and everything. So well organised this morning. So I thought maybe rather than the TAT and the tourism czars heading out and spending all this money at the travel expos, what happens if they offered subsidies to tourists to attract them, to encourage them to come back to Thailand? Look, I just did this crazy sum, offering $100 off the airfare, or as a subsidy, to the first 1 million tourists that came back to Thailand. Now that $100 would cost 3.5 billion baht, but that's a fraction of the budget of the Tourism Authority of Thailand. So, I mean, I think there are other ways besides going out there and telling travel agents to send their customers back. So many travellers these days are doing their shopping online. So then sort of circumventing the traditional travel agents and they're booking themselves or booking tour groups online. So maybe we need to get to those people and we need to offer them subsidies. We need to offer them incentives to come back to Thailand rather than the TAT going out there and actually sort of trying to get the travel agents interested in coming back to Thailand. And what are you marketing? Are you going to be marketing the temples and the bars and the beaches, or are you going to try and sell Thailand in a new way? Are the charms that attracted us and you to Thailand enough to bring tourists here at the moment? What's the big draw card for this next 6 months? What is going to bring people back to Thailand? So there's some questions. You might have some comments, so I'm going to go through your comments now over the past 5 minutes and see if you've got some thoughts. Good morning, Tim. Nice to see you again. Hi, True Blue Thai. A really good investment would have been to apply the Russian ruble. Isn't that correct? Haven't those sanctions worked so well? When will all the people come back? I don't know. I think there's going to be a slow, increasing dribble of tourists. But we'll get to the other problems that tourists are having around the world. But I might just see if we've got some comments on the last chapter I've been discussing. Okay, somebody's saying they could hand out coupons at the airport. Cash coupons, just raw, hard cash. I think it would be very, very popular. The Indian nightclubs in Pattaya are rocking. Great to see. This is an interesting thing. I mean, are there nightclubs and nightlife in Pattaya which is aimed specifically at one demographic? And if it is, there is a smart operator who has said, look, the Europeans or the people from America, they're not coming back at the moment in large numbers. They are coming, but not in large numbers. So how can we change our business to fit the new demographic that's come here? How can we get them to walk past and then come inside our door? That's smart thinking. A lot of the people running their bars going, oh, people aren't coming to Thailand anymore. You just got to change. You've got to evolve. You've got to evolve or die. You've got to change the way that you market your business. Certainly the Thaiger has done a lot of that over the past couple of years. Completely changed the way that we reach out to our readers. The current tourism demographic, says Key J, makes sense because of the increasing fuel prices which affects airfares. My guess, he said, is that it's going to be regional tourists until airfares stabilise. Key J, you're right on the mark. I think what we're going to see in Thailand over the next 6 months is a lot more short-haul tourists coming into Thailand. And the same is going to be for, well, not so much Australians, because it's pretty much a long journey to go from Australia to anywhere. I used to fly quite often from Melbourne to Phuket. And it used to take, I don't know, 9 hours. And the first 4 hours of the flight, maybe even 4.5 hours, were just flying over Australia before I even started getting into Southeast Asia. So getting from Australia to anywhere is a long haul probably. But I think you're right in saying that we're going to see a lot of Indians, Malaysians, Singaporeans, people coming in from Vietnam on a sort of an area trip. We're going to see Japanese and South Koreans returning. These are the people that I think are going to keep the Thai market going for these next 6 months. There's a lot of headwinds causing problems for the long-haul flights. The cost of fuel, the cancellations, the delays that are happening to airlines in the US and the UK and Europe at the moment. The rise of costs just because it's summer. Airfares always go up in summer. It's the holiday period. Not many of them are coming back to Thailand at the moment. It's just too far. Mark Robo, I'll let you know the difference on the same what is customer service Qantas flight compared to 3 months ago in 2 weeks' time. Okay, Mark, we look forward to your report coming up. I shouldn't have sold my fake gold necklace to the Indians in Pattaya, says Ben Hayes. Yeah, a lot of controversy about that. I won't get into that at the moment. I'm probably not really up on the topic, and I know there's a lot of opinions on that. It's tit for tat, Tim, don't you know? Sabai, sabai. The catch is the way they spend a lot of time, money only at Chinese-owned and operated businesses. PG Santa, I hear what you're saying, and the Chinese, when they were coming first into Thailand in the early part of the last decade, say 2010 to 2015, were coming mostly in mass tourism groups. And then they were getting on buses which were owned by Chinese companies. Same way the Russians built this ecosystem in Thailand for their tourists, the Chinese did the same and used to be taken to Chinese restaurants. And a lot of that money sort of went back to China. But in the last 5 years, leading up, say, 2015 to 2019, there was a big change. And we noted this at the Thaiger, and we used to report on it often, providing lots of statistics showing that the Chinese market massively evolved to the FITs, the free and independent tourists. And they were using apps like their Weibo to find cheap hotels, to book tours, to have their documentation and stuff. And they used to actually come to Thailand, and just like a lot of other people, they used to go and rent a motorbike, or they used to say, oh, let's go here for a couple of days, and they'd book it online. So there was a big change in the Chinese tourism mix over that 2015 to 2019 period. But a lot of people still remember those early days of Chinese tourism when it was all pre-packaged, all mass tourism, all buses full of Chinese people. That really changed in the last 5 years, and they were spending a lot of money. And the Thais, I can tell you, want them to come back, because they were, on a per day basis, per diem, they were the biggest spenders. Okay, nice YouTube videos of Chinese tour buses swarming all over the buffet. Okay, yes, I know there's a lot of those sort of typecasts of different tourists around the world. And I'm a little bit sick of hearing that. It's basically just racism. If you really think that all the tourists from one particular country act in one particular way, then you really need to get out and have a look a bit more beyond your little ecosystem, because it's very difficult to try and package a whole country of tourists into one typecast. I think we're sort of grown beyond that. Certainly the people who work here and work with tourism know that that's just not the case. Although it's, it may be fun to draw comparisons from time to time, it's by no means a sort of thing that you can paste onto everybody from one particular country. Hand says that investing in lady drinks is a much better investment than crypto. I have spent 50,000 baht a month for the last 9 years, says Cupid Stunt. I'll be careful what I'm saying sometimes. Yeah, okay, 50,000 baht a month. That sounds like a reasonable sort of money. In fact, I was doing budgets the other day for the next 30 years, would you believe, planning my impending demise as I sort of start to dribble and weaken and become more feeble than I already am. And I was sort of figuring that I would need at least 50,000 baht a month to live a comfortable life here in Thailand. I'm actually going to be doing a story in the next couple of weeks about how much you can get away with living here in Thailand, or how much you actually need to live both a comfortable and a luxurious life. So would be interested to hear other comments, but I think that 50,000 baht a month is not a bad amount if you want to live reasonably comfortably. That's just my thoughts. But thank you, Cupid Stunt. I'm saying something wrong there. Jason, when the girls come back to Pattaya, yes, well, I believe supply and demand, more tourists arrive back in Pattaya, the girls will return. Well, and the boys too. Got to step up the roti canai quality. Okay, good. I had a bit of a problem reading this today. Tim, if the number of views on Good Morning Thailand programs fall, what will you do? Well, the numbers of views on Good Morning Thailand haven't already fallen. I mean, they're sort of up and down with the daily topics. But what happens at the Thaiger and Thaiger YouTube is not really an issue for me anymore. I'm stepping away from the company at the end of this month. Good heavens, I've only got 4 more weeks to go. And it's time for the young generation the younger, smarter people and new people in the board to take the company in a much more exciting, dynamic direction. And I truly wish them well. Okay, what else do we have here? Why not offer special time 1 hour? Not sure what you're saying there. Mohammed, you've given us AED $10 and you've also asked a question that hasn't come up on my... Here it is. Hello Tim, good to see you live. Have a good live stream. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Appreciate your kind comments. There's no racism in Thailand, only price for local and price for foreigner. Jimmy James making a comment about the two-tier pricing. Look, the two-tier pricing is quite controversial and seems to have very polarised views. I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. It doesn't particularly bother me. I understand that some people get really upset when they have to face what we call two-tier pricing. But you've got to remember that Thais have a much lower salary than perhaps you do. And for them to be paying the same amount as tourists would be unthinkable to enter, say, a national park or a temple. And it's at the same time, for tourists to be able to do all those things for free, perhaps that doesn't give these places operating the national parks or the temples or whatever you're paying to get into, the opportunity to improve them. So there's a lot of different arguments. It's not racism. It's nothing to do with racism. It's basically looking after its locals compared to everywhere else in the world. So it's certainly not racism as such. That's just the wrong term to use there. Let's move into another topic So having a talk about the tourism mix and the short-haul market, remembering that both the Chinese and the Russians are out of the tourism mix, at least for the rest of this year, I would say. Certainly, they've just introduced, I think, 2 flights a week back to China. I think they were both to Guangzhou. Certainly one of them was to Guangzhou, which is just over the road from Hong Kong, across the, what's the Delta River? The Pearl River, the Pearl Delta. I've actually spent quite a lot of time in that area, but I do sort of forget the terminology sometimes. But yeah, 2 flights a week isn't going to solve Thailand's tourism problem. And it's still very difficult for Chinese to not so much get out of China, but to then return. They are removing some of the impediments, the biggest being the long quarantine time. I think they're reducing the quarantine time, but even if you've got 1 day quarantine or 1 test, it's going to stop a lot of people from travelling. And we know, even when here in Thailand we were getting rid of the testing and the quarantine, just that 1 day of quarantine, that 1 test at the airport was putting a lot of people off. So I think no matter what the Chinese do, and remember they've still got the zero COVID policy. So are they going to be allowing their citizens to travel out to the world and come back into China when they've still got the zero COVID policy? I don't see that changing. We'll hear more apparently in October when official statements are going to be made about travel from China. So I think we can pretty much count the Chinese and the Russians out for the rest of this world. I don't know what's going to happen with the war in Ukraine. It could be over tomorrow. I think it's going to drag on for a long, long time. And then the effects of that, the fallout from the invasion of Ukraine, I think is going to be felt for a long, long time as well. So Chinese and Russians, probably it's going to be well into next year, even if everything went in favour of those particular markets in the next few months. Interesting figures. Pattaya attracted about 5 million domestic tourists and about 2 million Chinese tourists, as well as travellers from Russia, India and South Korea, generating some 300 billion in income. This is in 2019. So that was the tourism mix, and a lot of money coming from those markets, generating some 300 billion. Chinese, Russians, Indians and South Koreans. Now, from January to April this year, 3.8 million visitors have travelled through the turnstiles, if you like, of Pattaya businesses. But most of those, about 90%, have been Thais, and they've been using the We Travel Together hotel subsidy program. Now, the government's slowly phasing that out. So, and I think Thais to a certain extent have spent a lot of their travel money over the past year supporting their own market, supporting travel, and the We Travel Together was very successful in getting Thais to travel around their own country for a lower price. But now we're going to have to just rely on more foreign tourists and far few Thai tourists moving forward. So that's another dynamic in this new post-COVID, or I don't know, post-Thailand Pass era. Can't really use the word post-COVID yet, because just reading the news the past couple of days, this BA4 and BA5 variant is actually causing quite a few problems in the areas it's seeing very quick rises. Australia, the UK, some countries in Europe, France and Germany in particular, and now the US are starting to see big surges in this BA4 and BA5, which seems to be quite resistant to immunity, both natural immunity and also immunity from the earlier vaccines. So sidestepping this, a lot of people are now getting re-getting COVID because it's getting earlier versions of COVID doesn't seem to be preparing you or making you naturally immune to these new variants. So this is going to be a concern that the world and you are going to have to navigate, and it's all very well to say, oh, no, it's all a scam, it's all to do with the World Economic Forum and what's all the other things that people say. I've read it all, and calling people sheep for wearing masks and stuff. But I think this is something we're going to have to navigate as well, beyond the cost of fuel and inflation and the problems with travel around the world at the moment. We're going to have to confront these new variants, and these new variants of BA4 and BA5, primarily BA5, is causing a problem. Now, I note that I watch Dr. John Campbell every day, and he's been quite effective and quite educative over the past 2 years with COVID, and he reports it pretty much factually. He's got a few things wrong, but 99% of the time he does sort of get things right. Doesn't offer a lot of opinion, but very good at just providing some facts about some of these issues, and he sees it as a potential problem over the next couple of months. So it's all very well to call this bullshit or rubbish or a scam, but in fact it's quite real, and you are going to be feeling the effects of this at some stage, whether it's people around you who become infected or you become infected. It's very infectious, this new variant. I've already had COVID once this year. I don't want to get it again, which might bring us, I'll jump forward a bit to the issue of, you're going to love this, the wearing of face masks. Now let me share a few things with you. It was 10 days ago that the Thai government announced that you don't have to wear face masks in open public areas. Well, not so much you don't have to wear them, but it's voluntary. Now, after that, the Prime Minister has twice come out and said he congratulates Thais for keeping on wearing their masks. And I think probably sending a quite mixed message out to the public. Yes, wearing masks is voluntary in open public areas, but it's great that you are still wearing them. Now let me tell you, I've been walking around the Asok and Sukhumvit area for the past week. Back in Phuket today, but I was up in Bangkok for the past week. And I have been working hard at not wearing a mask. And I just get stares. It makes me feel like either a rebel without a cause, or makes me feel a bit like a pariah. But I'm actively trying to support the idea of taking off your masks in public. And these are wide open streets that I'm sort of walking up, And I was going to do a video yesterday just to show you that every single person, well, not every single person, but 99 out of 100 are still wearing their face masks in open public areas, at least in central Bangkok. Look, it could be different in other parts of the country. Certainly in high tourism areas where there's a lot of foreigners, I think you'll see a lot more face masks coming off. But I mean, to get from my office yesterday back to Phuket, I had to wear a mask in the taxi, I had to wear a mask in the airport, I had to wear a mask on the plane, I had to wear a mask going through the Phuket airport, had to wear a mask in the taxi going to my home. So it's all very well to say that you don't have to wear face masks anymore, but in fact you do in pretty much most of the daily usage occasions. Take them off when you're exercising, take them off when you're on the beach, take them off when you're walking around outside. You can do that now, you can make that voluntary decision to do it. But as far as getting on a plane in Thailand, you are still required to wear a mask for the whole flight. And let me tell you, the crew love coming up and going and reminding you to put your mask back on, almost annoyingly, because I sort of naturally just after sort of end up with my mask around my chin and they come and remind me. And they're quite forceful about it. There's no food and beverage services on any domestic flights at the moment. This is another sort of COVID hangover. And so the crew, with nothing else to do, just love going around and making sure you've got your mask fitted on properly. So the idea of coming to Thailand, you don't have to wear a mask anymore, is not quite right. And remember all the private shops, 7-Elevens, shopping centres, they may require you to keep your mask on. Now, somebody told me yesterday, walking around central in Phuket, a lot of people now walking around without their masks. But if you go into a shop in those shopping centres, the shop can still require you to wear a mask. That's their prerogative. I'm going to have a cough. And a quick drink. Just give me 10 seconds to catch my breath. My God, I've been talking for what? 37 minutes. How can I do this? So I've got two theories about the reason that Thai people are still wearing their masks. Is there an actual genuine fear about Omicron variants BA4 and BA5? Most of this information or news is overseas at the moment. Whilst there obviously are cases inside Thailand, and 3 doctors have come out during the week and noted that there has been a rise, quite a big surge of a rise in cases, hospitalisations in Bangkok especially, and they believe that they're mostly BA4 and BA5, but they're still awaiting to hear about the actual DNA of these viruses. I'm not sure if that news is widespread enough in Thailand at this stage to actually cause people to worry about that particular issue. I'm sure they will over the coming weeks, but at this moment, I don't think that's really big news. Another one is that Thais, like a lot of Asian people, are a collectivist society rather than an individualist society. It's a bit of those East versus West situations. But culturally, Thais are collectivist rather than individualist. So the idea of being the first person to take your mask off, whether you can or not, I think is actually stopping a lot of people from taking their mask off. They want to, but because everybody else is still wearing face masks around them, all their Thai peers, their friends, in the office, on public transport, they don't want to be the first to take their mask off in public. I think that's an issue as well. And I think also another thing that is genuine here in Thailand is that there is a genuine, heartfelt respect for others, not only in your family, but for other people. And I think that the idea of wearing a face mask to stop potentially contaminating other people around you, you're not coughing and spluttering and sneezing. If you do have the sneezes or the wheezes or the coughs, you're not coughing on other people around you or your family. And I think that that is probably part of the attitude as well. And so again, it's all very well to say, I don't want to wear a mask, or masks are ineffective, or whatever you may feel personally. But I think here in Thailand we're going to see a hangover of mask wearing for quite a long time. Despite me and other foreigners trying to be quite defiant and walking around in open spaces not wearing our mask and showing that it's time to take them off in the open now, a lot of Thais still aren't. And that's causing also a lot of foreigners, certainly not all, to respect the fact that the Thais are still wearing their masks and keeping them on themselves. Different sensibility. Let's go to some of your comments on that issue. And Tim, you had COVID. It's not fake after all. Definitely not fake. All I could say is I didn't have it too badly. I was sick for a week. My biggest problem was at night time and lying down. I literally could not breathe. I had to sit up. So for 3 nights I was sitting up, sleeping, which was quite uncomfortable. I couldn't breathe if I was lying down. I was really short of breath. Now, I chose not to make a fuss about it or announce it. I could sort of work during the daytime, although I made sure I didn't go to the office or outside my home. I wasn't going to go to a Thai hospital because I feared sort of being locked up and charged a hideous amount of money and fed a whole lot of drugs when I knew the best thing was probably good rest and just letting the virus, as other viruses do, just work its way through my system and hope that I was, my good health was going to be on my side. As it was okay. Certainly for the month after, though, I still felt quite flat and sort of dull. You might say that's continuing. But it did have quite an effect on me for at least a month. There's other people in our staff, I'll let them tell their own stories, but they certainly had quite a rough bout of COVID. One person that most of you know quite well, still sort of suffering the after effects of a bout from about a month ago. In my opinion, the dollar and Thai baht are down 99% against Bitcoin. Don't understand that at all. Thomas Hardy, you are a Farang. Okay, trying to catch up with the conversation here. The Lone Ranger supports mask wearing, but not Tonto. Thank you, Paul Weston. Everybody still in masks in Pattaya. Thank you, Kevin O, for your observation. Skidmark says when it was about 50-50 with them on. Skidmark, I sort of need to know where you were because that would help put your comment in context. True Blue Tie says, I'm not wearing a mask more and more when I'm out now, and I do feel self-conscious about people looking at me. Yes, but I respect the Thais when I go into stores and markets, not a problem. I think that's genuine, general tone, True Blue Tie. Benjamin Fisher says, get your face off my money. Again, I'm missing the context of that. Who's denying it's very real? Why putting words in my mouth? Keyboard, transparent media truth. Not sure what you're talking about there. Some lady on the BTS gave me a strange look with her mask on. I think she was sticking her tongue out at me. Good luck to you. I'm going to have a quick talk about public transport as we wade through your comments. Public transport in Thailand, I mentioned this at the start of the program, so I should definitely talk about it, has really changed over the past 2 years. If you were here, say, 10 years ago and you come back to Bangkok now, you'll really notice a difference. The number of BTS type SkyTrain lines has multiplied by 2 or 3 over the past decade. Now, in the last couple of months, there's been another 2 lines open up, including a line now out to the Dom Muang airport. It's going from the Chatuchak area, the Bang Na, I'm going to get this wrong, is it Bang Na railway station? Help me out. Is it the new railway station called Bang Na? Bang something. Anyway, there's this new transport hub. It's moved from Hua Lompong in the Pattaya, Chinatown sort of area north now, a big new railway hub, and a lot of the MRT and the BTS now sort of go through that area. But you can now pretty well get a SkyTrain out to Don Mueang Airport. And of course, they've already got the airport link that takes you from the sort of, what do you call that area? Petchaburi area, all the way out to Suvarnabhumi. So the public transport's really changing. The new pink line and yellow line are going to be online over the next couple of months. I think it's going to be opening to the public early next year. The pink line sort of services in an east-west direction north of Bangkok, covering Muang Thong Thani, the conference area, and then out to Lat Phrao, up near the Don Mueang Airport. Then the yellow line goes from Lat Phrao down sort of south and across to the east, down near the airport, and then down south, circling back to near the Chao Phraya at Sam Rong. So they're two new lines. I mean, there's just so many lines opening up, and it's making a big change to the way that we can all get around the city. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, you've got the motorcycle taxis. Now, these are, I get around Bangkok almost exclusively on the motorcycle taxis. Anything for 1 or 2 kilometres, certainly. I find them quick, effective, relatively safe. I mean, at the end of the day, these guys, and some girls, do this every day, hundreds of times, and they've got sort of a second nature about the flow of the traffic, and they're universally fairly safe. Most of the motorcycle accidents are usually just young, hot-headed Thai males who are drunk and driving out in the countryside on open roads, just going too fast usually. But again, if you're going to get on a motorbike, if you think they're behaving strangely, just perhaps get on another motorbike instead. But anyway, forgetting what you think about motorcycle taxis, there's a big change there because Grab came into the market maybe 18 months ago. Oh, time's flying. It might even be 2 years ago. And they made a big change because it was cheaper to get a Grab motorcycle taxi or a Win than the local motorcycle taxi gangs, which have their own version of zones and operating inside or outside of those zones. Now the Thai government are saying that the Grab bikes are going to have to operate within those zones, and they're going to have to register as motorcycle taxi riders. It was going to happen on July the 15th. It's now been extended 2 months to allow the Grab drivers to come into line with the new regulations. But I think this is going to make quite a change. I mean, I think I've used both the Win motorcycles. They're the ones with like the safety vests, the numbers on the back. They operate as part of a gang. They usually have to pay quite a lot of money to join those gangs, but it's also quite lucrative, and especially when there's a lot of people getting around. Remembering that probably 95% of their customers are local Thais getting around. The tourists tend to use those motorbikes less, and they'd use things like normal taxis, tuk-tuks perhaps, or the BTS or the MRT. So those new lines coming online, they're not particularly cheap, but for tourists, yeah, it is still an inexpensive way to get around. It's air conditioned, it's safe, it's very, very clean, and it's well organised, it's extremely reliable. Interestingly, those 2 new lines are monorails. They're not the traditional wheels on each side train that operates in a sort of a concrete bucket and travelling along. These are monorails where the train reaches outside the concrete pillars, and it's got wheels then that keep the train on the centre. They're not maglev sort of monorails. They're not quite that sophisticated, but it's a different type of system. Obviously a bit more newer than the old SkyTrain. It's been operating for 20 years now in Thailand. So it's going to be interesting to see these new lines come on, and it's just, of course, making a big change to the ways that Thais get around their capital city and the ways that foreigners can choose to travel as well. So yeah, look forward to seeing all that coming online. Let's go to some more of your comments as we wrap up today's discussions, and we'll see if I can get into the discussion here. It's like a bad Dr. Seuss story, those who wear masks and those who don't. I'm a This is all quite difficult. You should basically spend all your time on the comments or all the time talking about stories. It's hard to flip backwards and forwards and getting into the comments. KJ, it's more the latter for me. I don't want to be responsible for spreading anything to vulnerable others. Yeah, I mean, all you want to say about face masks, they're still very effective at stopping you as an infected person coughing and spluttering your insides outside. Of course, the COVID virus doesn't travel independently by itself. It's traveling with the vapor and the moisture and the water droplets from your body. And a mask is perfectly suited to capturing all that. It's certainly going to cut down what you're exhaling and coughing and spluttering a lot more than without the mask. So that's the effectiveness of face masks as such. For somebody who is doing the inhaling, the masks are obviously less effective for that. I went to a funeral yesterday, and before I went, I asked my wife if I needed a mask, and she said, "Up to you." Skid mark, I think that's quite funny. Clever, subtle. Okay, my Thai wife hates masks, says Mark Lynn. Okay, well that's an interesting attitude there. Probably something not widely shared by Thais, or even if they hate the mask, they're still wearing them. And that's the point I suppose I was making. As I said, 99 out of 100 people, when I was walking up and down a Voluntary road during the week, all the way, literally I've been walking from Sukhumvit up to Petchaburi Road at different times, everybody wearing their mask. Some lady on the BTS gave me a strange look. I did that one. I know many people who have had COVID and would not wish it on anyone, myself included. The dollar keeps going up because of inflation. That will change soon. It will come down soon, says Buzzy. Yeah, if anybody could actually predict the future of what the money markets, things like inflation, the share market, cryptocurrencies can do, they'd obviously already be millionaires. I had COVID-19 a few weeks ago, hard but not deadly. Well, deadly to 1 to 1.5% of the population, and I'm certainly glad that you weren't one of that percentage. Okay, I'm now here all in masks. Tim, I wanted all the girls to come back to Pattaya, says Jason Finch. I don't have any control over that. I could make a few phone calls, but beyond that, it's really going to be back to good old supply and demand, I would suggest. Sound asleep space, Zelenka, transparent media truth. Interesting how accounts here clearly failing to comprehend. Okay, so a bit of a discussion in here whether COVID is real or not. Damien Jesser, nice to have you with us, Damien. Ben, have Thai ladies down the road here in New South Wales. She married Aussie guy, runs a something out of the house Thai food, very good. Hans, hi Hans. There were lots of great places to eat in the back of Jung Salon. Remembering that the two big shopping centres in Phuket, Jung Salon and Central, have been closed since February last year, and both are looking to reopen over the next couple of months. So although people say, Patong's rocking and it's all back, well, the two biggest shopping centres aren't open at the moment. So them opening up, I think, will be an indication that people are certainly coming back to Patong in numbers. Okay, Tim, do you foresee the rollback of pandemic measures in Thailand being affected by Omicron subvariant surges? KJ, good question. I think any government now which wants to roll back their restrictions or reintroduce restrictions, reintroduce compulsory wearing of face masks, are going to face retribution at the next poll when they come up for re-election, I think it would be very unpopular. It would take, I think, a big surge of cases, hospitalisations and measurable deaths to force a government to do that. I think we've now got a situation where we understand so much more about the disease, the treatments are much more improved. We know better how to mitigate it without having to do lockdowns. As I said, the big one is the fact that so many more people are vaccinated, so many people have a level of immunity, despite these latest variants seeming to sidestep a lot of that built up immunity in communities around the world. It's going to be interesting to know what's going to happen. I just don't think there's going to be many governments that are going to have the stomach to be able to add more restrictions again at this stage. Very good question though. If it does happen, you'd consider that Thailand, being as risk averse as it has been, would probably be one of the first governments to reimpose restrictions. There's been no talk about that. As I said, generally the whole BA4, BA5 subvariant discussion is not really taking off in Thai media at the moment. It's not a big issue here at the moment. That could change in the next few weeks, and of course the Thaiger will do everything to bring you that information. And with all that said, just see if there's anything more I need to address here. Thailand usually goes crazy with new restrictions when new variants arrive. Thomas, you are right, and we'll just have to see what happens here in Thailand. I can't predict that. As I said, I just think it's going to be very difficult for a government to make that move, particularly because there's an election in Thailand somewhere between the end of this year and March next year. So everybody's got their election on at the moment. Congratulations on the success of the Thaiger, says Big W. Thank you very much. It's been an amazing 6-year journey. And as I've said often, and I'll keep on saying it, I do wish the staff there and the people taking over the very best for the future. And Tim, Isan is spectacular, says Ron Lassia. I want to go back. Yeah, Isan is a great part of Thailand. A very different experience, a very different vibe. A lot of people say perhaps more friendly, but I think you could say that about agricultural communities anywhere in the world. You sort of get that different vibe, the slightly happier people, more relaxed lifestyle, perhaps less worries. But Isan is definitely one of those parts of Thailand you need to visit when you come back, and I hope you come back soon. Especially with free doctor visits, says Grant Brown. Not sure if you're talking about here in Thailand. There's universal healthcare, so all Thais get free healthcare, no matter if you're making 100 billion baht a month or whether you're making 10 baht a month. You get free medical care, public health care here in Thailand. And I think that has also contributed to a very low rate of deaths generally here in Thailand over the period of the COVID pandemic. The fact that there's been available and free medical care, I think has certainly helped. All the 8, 9 and 10s are on OnlyFans now, says K-Bomb. I see no news in America about new variants. Buzzy, no, it's not really making big news there. For whatever reason, the UK seems to have the best data. It really has been spectacular. There's the Zoe, John Campbell, there's 2 or 3 websites, and the amount of really detailed, excellent information and data that they present is very, very good. It doesn't seem to be anything like that in the US, but I'm pretty sure you'll see. I think it was Florida, Texas, and New York all had quite big rises of COVID infections, and it is believed that they will be the BA4 or the BA5 virus. But you're right, it's just one of those topics that I think there's quite a lot happening in the US at the moment, quite controversial topics, and people just sort of don't want to talk about COVID anymore. But yeah, I was just looking at the numbers the other day, and those 3 states seem to have the biggest rises, and they're certainly seeing surges in cases at the moment. Let's hope that doesn't lead to more hospitalisations or deaths, but certainly there has been an increase in hospitalisations in places like Germany, France and the UK and Australia over the past month, which are because of these new variants. If you sacrifice your freedoms for so-called safety, you'll end up with neither. A good comment, thank you, Silver Miner. I think when it comes to a potentially dangerous virus, it's up to the governments to protect the society to an extent, and then it's also up to people to make up their own mind how they want to cope with those decisions and how they want to relate to the lockdowns. But I think the governments have a responsibility to try and protect their public. That's part of what they have to do, apart from, fixing holes in the roads and making sure the garbage is collected each week. Tim leaving the Thaiger, why, says Peter Fortune. I've covered that many times before, don't need to go back to that again. Just in finishing, want to remind you that Jay and Natty and the Thaiger video team have a great video coming out today that I warmly recommend. I've seen some of the material and it looks very exciting, and you're going to see a lot more of these travel vlogs from the Thaiger in the future. So good luck with the launch of their big project today. I think I'm back tomorrow with a video, I think it comes out at about 3 o'clock, which is about the big changes in the microchip, EV, electric vehicle industry, and high-speed trains in China over the past 5 years, and that might be of interest to some people. Scott D, greetings from Chicago. Your Elvis movie review episode was awesome. Thank you very much. If you do watch the Elvis movie review, which you can find if you go search on the Thaiger YouTube channel, it was only done, I think it came out on Wednesday. Just wait till the very, very end. You'll see a move. If you haven't seen that Elvis movie, I'd recommend go and see it. I really, really enjoyed it. I've seen it 3 times. And with that, I thank you all very, very much. I really appreciate that you've allowed me into your homes and your offices over the past hour or so. Hopefully we've had a good chat about some of the things happening in Thailand at the moment. I've spoken my mind, I've been honest with you, I've shared my opinion. You may disagree with those opinions, but I've done it in good faith, and I'm not trying to wind anybody up, I'm not trying to get you upset, I'm just presenting the facts as I see them. And with that, I wish you well for a fantastic Saturday, no matter where you are in the world, and especially, of course, if you're here in Thailand. Have a great Saturday. Keep checking the Thaiger, thethaiger.com for the latest news, and I look forward to seeing you again next Saturday.